So I started using drugs in early high school and initially started off with alcohol and taking pills. So I was accessing both of those at home and using them before school. So, a lot of it was around really secretive using, hanging out with some older kids and, a lot of experimentation. But right from the very start, it was always about, really getting out of it and pushing limits on things. And then as I got older and started hanging around pubs and clubs and things, again, I was hanging out with people who were much older. A lot of them were sex workers and stuff and had access to different drugs. So as soon as I caught on that they were using some other drugs, I really hassled them because I wanted to try them. And a lot of my friends from that time were able to stop. Some of them, died. Some of them were murdered. Some went to jail. Even though I was using every day, I managed to hold it together and ended up using speed every day for years and years and years. And it wasn't until much later on that meth came into the picture. Meth was obviously a lot stronger than the speed, but it seemed like a kind of obvious choice for me to go from using speed to using meth. And, everything changed from there. I went from using with other people in the party scene and using drugs as a way to fit in with people to only using on my own, only using at home, still using every day, but it was more a way of keeping other people away, and it was a really secretive thing. So I was still going to work and keeping things together and everything looked okay from the outside, but I was just using every day and couldn't stop, and it was completely out of control. So using on my own suited me in a lot of ways. It meant I wasn't answerable to anyone, I wasn't accountable to anyone. I didn't have to show anyone how disgusting my life had become, didn't have to share my drugs with anyone, and it took me a really long time to get to the point where I was able to ask people for help. I didn't know where to go for help. I was waking up every day wanting to kill myself. My drug use was completely to the point where it was becoming really dangerous. There'd been lots of unsafe sex, lots of sharing of needles, hanging around with really dangerous people a lot of the time, doing things that I didn't want to do to get my drugs. I'd basically become everything that I never wanted to be, and was going against all of my values and had no idea how to stop it. So at the time, I came across some other people who had stopped using, and they were doing some things in their life to keep themselves safe and to get out of that. And that was the first time that I'd ever come across that. So I was able to ask these people for some help and basically just copy what they do. So, I was able to surround myself for the first time with people who weren't using and who weren't drinking and doing things like that, and they weren't in the party scene. So having that option was key for me to be able to get away from it, because I'd been doing what I'd been doing for so long. I had no networks and I had no idea how to get out of it. Seeing other people do it was absolutely 100% key, because that was never something that was an option before. I never knew that stopping and finding my way out of that big hole was an option. You know, letting go of the whole thing around socialising in the queer scene, because everything is so focused on alcohol and drugs and being around all of that sort of stuff. That was really difficult to break out of, and to then go on and find another identity away from that stuff, and to find ways to be part of the community but be away from the drugs and alcohol. Because in my experience, everything I ever did in community was in some way associated with drinking and using. So it's been a really long process to work out basically a new identity away from the queer scene but within it as well. So still feeling like I belong but without feeling like I have to do those things to belong. So even though I still feel like I'm part of the community, I give myself permission to not take part in certain things. So, you know, I don't feel obligated to go to pubs and clubs. I don't feel obligated to go out and drink and do those sorts of things. I'm really careful around who I hang around with and the physical space that I go into. And, you know, I still miss it sometimes. I really do feel like I'm missing out at times, but that was a decision I had to make. And because I've been able to stick with it for a while now, I've found other things in my life that I really strongly identify with. You know, I'm able to stick to my values and things now. So for me, the payoff, it's really been worth it for me. And, you know, I'm really glad that I did it.